Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show, y'all. In our last episode, Marcus took a monumental step by supporting Tony's parole application, signaling a potential turning point in their strained relationship. Today, we dive into what happens next as Tony re-enters society and tries to prove he's a changed man. It's a story of second chances, struggles, and a fragile hope that healing is truly possible. The day Tony walked out of prison was a cloudy one, fitting the mood of apprehension and hope that swirled inside Marcus. He'd agreed to pick Tony up, an act that felt monumental in itself. As Marcus pulled up to the prison gates, he spotted Tony standing there with a small duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Tony's once proud posture was now more subdued, his face marked by lines that spoke of years lost and lessons learned. "Hey," Marcus said as Tony climbed into the passenger seat. "Hey," Tony replied, his voice quiet. The ride was filled with awkward silences and cautious small talk. Marcus had arranged for Tony to stay at a halfway house nearby, a place he vetted through his connections with the Second Gear Initiative. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As they arrived at the halfway house, Tony turned to Marcus. "Thanks for this," he said earnestly. "I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm grateful for it." Marcus nodded, his emotions too tangled to find the right words. "Yes, make it count," he said before driving off. Tony's first weeks out were a whirlwind of adjustments. The world had changed in ways he hadn't anticipated: smartphones, self-checkout lanes, rideshare apps. It was overwhelming, but he was determined to make it work. With Marcus' help, Tony joined the Second Gear Initiative, starting as a trainee in the auto repair program. It was a humbling experience, taking orders from men younger than him, but Tony embraced it. Marcus watched from a distance, torn between hope and skepticism. He wanted to believe in Tony's transformation, but years of betrayal had left scars that weren't easily healed. Still, seeing Tony show up every day, putting in the work, stirred something in Marcus. Maybe, just maybe, his brother was capable of change. One evening, as Marcus was locking up the shop, he noticed Tony lingering by the tool shed. "You need something?" Marcus asked. Tony hesitated before replying. "Just wanted to say thanks for giving me a shot here." "It's not about me," Marcus said. "This is your shot to take. Don't waste it." Tony nodded, a quiet determination in his eyes. "I won't." Despite Tony's progress, not everyone was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Some of the other trainees were wary of him, having heard about his past. One incident in particular tested Tony's resolve. A trainee named Darnell openly challenged Tony during a workshop, accusing him of being a fraud. "You think just because you're Marcus's brother, you get a free pass," Darnell said. "Some of us actually earned our spot here." Tony clenched his fist but took a deep breath before responding. "You're right," he said. "I didn't earn this the way you did. But I'm here to prove that I'm not the same man I used to be." Darnell scoffed, but Marcus, who had overheard the exchange, stepped in. "We're all here to grow," he said firmly. "That includes Tony. Give him the same chance you want for yourself." The tension eased, but the incident left Tony feeling shaken. Later that night, he confided in Marcus. "Maybe I don't belong here," he said. "Belonging isn't handed out," Marcus replied. "It's earned. And from what I've seen, you're earning it." As the months passed, Tony's hard work began to pay off. He completed his training and started mentoring newer trainees, sharing his story as a cautionary tale. For Marcus, seeing Tony take on this role was surreal. It was as if the brother he'd always wished for was finally emerging. But the journey wasn't without setbacks. One day, Marcus received a call from the director of the halfway house. Tony had missed curfew. Panic and anger surged through Marcus as he drove to the address he'd been given. He found Tony sitting on a park bench, looking defeated. "What the hell are you doing?" Marcus demanded. Tony sighed. "I just needed some air. Everything feels so heavy all the time. I'm trying, Marcus, but it's hard." Marcus's anger softened as he saw the vulnerability in Tony's eyes. He sat down beside him. "No one said it would be easy," he said. "But running away won't solve anything. If you're struggling, talk to me. Don't shut me out. Tony nodded, and for the first time, Marcus felt like they were truly on the same page. By the end of the year, Tony had become a fixture at the Second Gear Initiative. He wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. Marcus began to let his guard down, allowing himself to believe in the possibility of a real relationship with his brother. One evening, over dinner, Tony said something that struck a chord. You know, Marcus, for a long time, I didn't think I could change, Tony said. But you showed me that it's possible. You gave me a chance when no one else would. I'll never be able to repay that, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying. Marcus looked at Tony, his heart heavy with a mix of emotions. You don't owe me anything, he said. Just keep doing the work. That's all I need from you. Check this out. An estimated 30,000 gangs with 850,000 members exist in the U.S., with many members being youths aged 12 to 24. Nearly 8% of middle and high school students in the U.S. reported being in a gang at some point in their lives. As we close this episode of Doing Time with Joe, let's reflect on what it means to rebuild trust. It's not a one-time act, but a series of choices made every day. For Marcus and Tony, the road ahead is still uncertain, but they're walking it together, and sometimes that's enough. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.